Well, he once called Bill Clinton a cynical, self-seeking, ambitious thug. He called Henry Kissinger a war criminal, and he called Mother Teresa a fraudulent fanatic. I want to return to the news of the death of journalist and literary critic Christopher Hitchens. One of Chris's great friends and close friends called him a, quote, guardian of our culture. That friend is author and physicist Lawrence Krauss, and he joins us now on the down from Palm Desert in California, just outside of Los Angeles tonight. I mean, always controversially, yet once inspired the ideals of skepticism, free inquiry and rational thought in many. And at the same time, Lawrence has been accused of being a bullying, lying, opportunistic, cynical contrarian. Who was the real Chris Hitchens?
Well, I suppose he was all of those things, which made him so interesting. I think all of those things I found attractive qualities in him. I think the fact that he valued skepticism about belief, perhaps most important of all, and the courage to speak out, even when he knew it wouldn't make him popular, which I think is the most one, again, for a true contrarian, one of the greatest characteristics that make them great.
Did he care what people thought of him, or who he was criticising, or indeed whether he hurt people?
Well, I think he was a caring person. I think he didn't care what people thought about him. I think he liked controversy, obviously. He liked, as an individual, he liked provoking. And I think that's part of the job, in fact, of a good journalist, is to provoke thought and perhaps provoke criticism. And he didn't, what is particularly interesting about Christopher is he didn't, many people you can guess what they're going to say about a given topic in advance based on their politics. But with Christopher, of course, he was all over the map. And in fact, his support for the Iraq War, for example, put him in the opposition with many people who agreed with him on many other beliefs. In fact, it put him in the opposition with me, and we used to debate it, as we debated many things.
Was he fun to be with?
People respected each other's ideas and knowledge.
Was he fun to be with?
He was always fun to be with, as long as you could keep up with him in Scotch. It was particularly fun to be with. He was like a child in a candy store when it came to ideas and relationships. He was a great friend, and after a night with him, it was one came away with it hardly believing it happened, because the topics that you ranged over were so vast, and his knowledge on absolutely everything was so great. He was by far the most well-read person I'd ever met. He made me want to grow up and be an intellectual.
So you didn't agree with him on everything? I mean, for example, that religion was evil, or that women are not funny. You don't have to tell me what you think about that. You say you didn't agree with him on the Iraq War either.
Well, I didn't agree with him about the Iraq War. Religion is evil, was something I think we were perhaps more in agreement with. As far as you say, as far as the women thing, I think I'll bow off there.
Tell us something that we don't know about him that you think might surprise us. I mean, you've said he was very warm, very charming. Many of us know about his addiction to booze and cigarettes, which he will, admit himself is probably part of the reason that sadly he's passed away as young as he did. Tell us something you think will surprise us about him.
Well, I think his remarkable tolerance. I think people might have thought of him as intolerant, but he had the closest friends with people. In fact, Francis Collins, for example, was an extremely close friend. Francis Collins is the head of the National Institutes of Health and a devout Christian whose views I know Christopher disagreed with incredibly, but he was incredibly friendly with Francis and had him over at the house all the time. That, and I think also his love of science. I think most people don't realize he was fascinated by science. That's one of the reasons we used to get together, because he used to probe me for knowledge about the universe, because he was fascinated learning about how the universe really behaves, even though he very rarely wrote about it. He was actually going to be writing the foreword for my new book before he became too ill, and it's about the universe from nothing, and he loved that idea. And I think, there's an anecdote that the last time I was with him, I was sitting at his kitchen table, and we opened the New York Times, and an article had come out about a program to keep Christian and Catholic students devout during their time at university, and there he was mentioned. I want to read it because it was so funny. It said, when describing the temptations to depart from piety, the author wrote, exposed to Nietzsche, Hitchens, co-ed dorms, and beer pong, such students are expected to stray. And I don't think anything could have made Christopher happier than that.
How would Chris want to be remembered, do you think?
I think the way we're remembering him as someone who was willing to speak his mind, upset people when necessary, and force people to rethink their beliefs about the universe. And as someone who was fearless and courageous in the ideas as you have to be, realizing that sometimes and often the side that you believe in, which he believed was the side of right, doesn't win. But nevertheless, you got to keep going on.
Lawrence Krauss, good luck with the new book. A friend and author, you're an author and physicist, and of course, friend of Chris Hitchens. We thank you very much indeed for coming in.